I'm Uldis Carlos Karlovskis and bringing to you today a topic on silos. It was a rather popular topic several years ago. I'm sorry for that. Several years ago, when there was the big buzz around DevOps, it was still a new thing, and then there were people running around and calling people bad names, silos. But then actually, if we look at the word silo, it's not a bad thing. This is just a screenshot from Google search, in combination with something doesn't really matter. But the silo as such is not a bad thing. At least the word as such, it doesn't say anything bad. But then here under number 3, the popular understanding of silo is it's vital that team members step out of their silos and start working together. So about stepping out from some silos, and then most companies have expensive IT systems they have developed over the years, but they are siloed. So something negative around it. So DevOps experts, I believe, know what I mean. But then, is it truly the issue? Kind of, is silo the issue? That's something what I want to discuss with you during the rest of 43 minutes or so. So I want to give you a promise. Very honestly, I have no idea how many people are listening. If there's someone in the background who can enlighten me, that would be great. um, I'm giving you a promise that after these 40 minutes, you will be able to make better decisions when you create software, when you restructure software, re-architect software. Is it in the cloud? Maybe it's in a private cloud, but hopefully you will start making a little bit better decisions. So who am I to give you that promise? I can't say that I am well-known world level speaker. I'd wish, but I've done my pot of salt. I have eaten my pot of salt, as some people say. What is somewhat unique about me that the first continuous integration I implemented in my student years, 16 years ago. And this is how the whole DevOps journey started for me, before the DevOps existed. So I always have been a little bit ahead of, of this mainstream, um, looking into DevOps topics, the new ways how to do software development, better ways, and so on and so on. Now I'm in Accenture. It's almost 10 years now in Accenture. I'm Accenture Nordex lead. I'm sorry, Accenture Nordex DevOps lead, which is an important role, but my day-to-day life is in Accenture Latvia, where my team of 150 people are doing all kinds of DevOps and cloud and containers, jobs, roles, projects, whatever you can picture under board DevOps, most probably we're doing it. And of course, all the latest, greatest modern technologies and practices. But then this how I came to this, I thought it's important to talk a little how I came to this. Yeah, today, yeah, it's been 16 years, it's easy to talk. But then let's go back in history a little, just for a second. So the first company where I started my journey was this. It was called Nexum Insurance Technologies. It was small local company in Latvia. So yes, those 16 years ago. um, it doesn't matter that much what I was doing and what was happening. The company doesn't exist anymore. But I remember myself having my first argument at work after something like 1 year um, experience, professional experience in this company. And that argument, it was, I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain what is my frustration about, but something was not making sense how this company is doing IT development, how they what their the whole approach I couldn't even explain it. I was frustrated about it, and people were looking at me and basically saying, you're too junior, just cool off. Obviously. But then years later, some 5 years later, I started understanding a few things. The DevOps didn't exist back then, I remind. So this is what, some 12, 13 years ago, I guess. And that was my first kind of public talk where I talked about configuration management and issues around IT, around development. And then this is just one small example on performance testing, where I was going through many cases where people are just acting weird at work, at IT work. People who are professionals. And there were some 60 people listening. It was a local meetup in Latvia. And the weird thing was that half of room was laughing their insides out. They saw it as super funny way how to look at things, and the other half of the room were deeply offended. And later on, there were some cards where you can leave feedback, written feedback, and on some of those cards, on red ones, it was saying, why do I need to listen about things which I do every day? And so half of room didn't get the kind of the joke of this. They were thinking that I'm being serious and about topics which were I was making a joke that, hey, so crazy things are happening in IT. So I still was not understood. Let's put it this way. Then I kind of grew up. This is there I have joined Accenture already. So this is some eight, less, some 6, 7 years ago, I think, where instead of all those talks, what is DevOps, what is DevOps, everyone was given a talk, what is DevOps, in a local conference. It was Wild Cards, I think the name was of the conference. I was trying to show the opposite, because that was the time when DevOps was kind of the most popular thing in IT, those 6, 7 years ago, and everyone was giving a talk and saying that that's DevOps and that they have found DevOps and so on and so on. So I went with a talk, what isn't DevOps, and I think the name was Married to DevOps or something like that. And there I was looking into, hey, what else is there? Kind of, where do we draw a line? Is drawing any line makes sense? Should we separate DevOps from the world? Is DevOps just the new way of IT? Maybe it's the same way, just having a new name, and so on and so on. um, I can't say that I was understood there, but people liked it. I think it was just one time when I delivered that talk. It's somewhere in my on the shelf. Probably wasn't the best one, doesn't matter. And then a few years later, I guess I went crazy with the whole topic. I started understanding what's going on in IT. So years, some 10 years in a row, I was complaining, I was making jokes about what people do in IT, and then it started hitting me kind of, what is the right approach? What is the issue? What is the cause of issues? And together with a friend, we made a talk about anime style, cartoon style would be more correct way, about how couple of these characters together are running a business of bunnies. How do they clone bunnies? What issues they are facing? How, because of company getting bigger, because of their department getting bigger, what new issues they are facing? As you see, it was rather bloody. It was a bloody talk. I have delivered it a few times. Oh, there's even a year on the slide, 2016. Yeah, in Vilnius. Yeah, people saw it as fun talk delivered just a few times. Mm, yeah, so that was some kind of already bigger maturity, but in a very childish approach. But then preparing some next talk. I don't remember for which event a few years ago, and kind of growing in my role, seeing new projects, seeing projects going bad. I understood. I found it. I found a talk. I found a talk by Netflix, and this one is delivered on some DevOps days. Here's the logo. I don't remember for which country. It doesn't really matter. And their lead Netflix architect, one of, I'm sorry, I'm super bad with names. I never remember names of people, but one of the most senior Netflix engineers comes to DevOps days and says that they don't do DevOps, right? What? Rest of the world keeps pointing fingers at Netflix and saying that they are one of the most modern DevOps companies, and they're like, we don't do DevOps. But what they say is that their engineering culture, the things what they do, how they do them, others call it DevOps. In other words, well, how he puts it, kind of the stuff what you are discussing here in this conference, it's what we do. So looks a lot like DevOps. It's what you're talking about. So to me, it was like truly, oh yeah, now I get it. What people mean when they say DevOps is a journey, for example, that DevOps is not a target. Still a lot to process, but yeah. So meaning it's not a real thing. It doesn't exist. There's a company doing DevOps, and they come and say, "Okay, we never meant to do DevOps." So it doesn't really exist. For me, it's truly a better engineering culture, practices, the right way, the modern way, something what has evolved throughout many failures of engineering, kind of. So giving you a second to process that. Hmm. So DevOps doesn't exist. But then what does, or what should we talk about then? If yeah, we need to blame someone. It's the complete opposite of the just culture and what's the right approach in DevOps. If you're a DevOps expert, so I'm going with the opposite. We're still human beings. We always want to blame someone. So let's blame someone. Usually, whom to blame? You obviously the smartest person in IT. Who is that? I believe you have a couple of options. Who could be the smartest person in IT? Maybe it's the manager, right? Always just point fingers up and you found someone, and that should be the one to blame. Well, is it really? Maybe depends on the structure, depends on a couple of things. But then a lot of engineers don't think that managers are smart. They appreciate someone else who, obviously, the architect. That's typically the most senior person on the project or product or team or company. The architect. Typically, for an engineer, you can't go higher than the architect in the company. Kind of It's some more like a myth, but that's how people approach things. Okay, so the architect. Um, Not the architect, but what is the architecture? So why it got my attention that it's firstly the art of practice, designing and constructing, of course, firstly buildings, but later on IT systems, that it's the art, the architecture. And then what I find specifically interesting, that the word architect, what do you think? What was first, architect or architecture? And funny enough, it's architects who created the architecture. The word architecture evolved from the work architect. I hope that makes you thinking, that kind of a bit weird, isn't it? So an architect as such is nothing. He creates the architecture, and only then you see the result. So something self-made in a way. So a bit philosophical approach to the thing. Okay, but that's on architecture. That's on architects. Who is the architect? Really, who? Many of you, I believe, it doesn't matter which part of the world, really, but everyone recognizes the picture. Okay, maybe it's a bit now oldish movie, and okay, maybe not everyone recognizes it, but the Matrix, among IT people, definitely one of the most popular stories, right? Movies. And then this moment when Neo is standing in the white room conversing with the architect, he is not in the matrix any longer. He is in the machine mainframe. So even kind of behind all the fancy stuff of, I don't know, microservices, UIs, React, even driven architecture and whatnot, even in the matrix, there still was that legacy mainframe. What's another funny thing is, or a thing to pay attention to, is that who was kind of cooler than Neo, the programmer, right? Every IT person wants to be the Neo. So who was cooler than him? The architect. And funny enough, who was the architect? It was a program. It was not a real human being. It was a program cloned. Well, someone wrote his human code in the system, and this way the architect was born. So it so even in the movie, architect, as what we expect from the architect, isn't a human. Okay. So what does the architect know? I don't mean the movie, I mean in real life. What does the architect know, or what we expect it to know? And this is a slide 2019, so 2 years ago, by Accenture, where every year we are updating this together with other companies, and what's in IT, what's popular, what's on the peak, what's common. And then picture yourself as an architect who needs to be kind of the master of all. Uh, can you picture any single brain being an expert in all these topics? And with every year, it's just most of arrows keep going up, only a few keep going down. So it's more and more knowledge required every day. But that's what architects should know. It's the most it's the smartest person. So where does it live? Where does the architect live? And then probably some of you are fans of Martin Fowler. I am, without a doubt. And then he talks about all topics, right? But then he researches this approach of elevators. And that is how the good architect lives, kind of in an elevator, going to top floor to the board, going down, talking with people. But it's a bit slow, right? It's a super fast elevator, but still that architect is going up and down, and kind of still a bit slow. But yeah, architect should be that connecting brain between all the parties. It's not a BA. It's an architect who actually makes decisions, kind of. Yeah, a bit slow. What does it make the architect? So what is the outcome of this role or person? Crazy diagrams, I'd say. This one is I'm not sure from where was this one. I just found it because this one reminded me a lot a real architecture which I saw at some Accenture client by enterprise architects. There was a team of enterprise architects, and they showed me what do they have, what do they work with, and it looked like this. It was box behind the box, a group of boxes, all kinds of colors with some names, and not much more detail. And guess what? Do you know do do you think that developers um, knew where that diagram is? They didn't even know that such thing exists. So office of architects, two, three, or yeah, it was a small team of architects kind of working on architecture, putting these boxes together, architecting, but then the engineer basically behind the wall in the same building didn't even know that such thing exists, and was doing their stuff in the way how they see it. Is it a well architected? Yeah, and of course I asked, hey, what about this box? And about every box which I asked about that architecture, those architects were saying, oh, ignore. Yeah, that's outdated. That part changed. Okay, nice work. Yeah, very real story, not made up. So and then this from one of Martin Fowler's interviews with someone, I don't remember who said that to him, but he wrote it down. We made good decisions, but only now do we understand how we should have built it. Meaning, the and everyone can say this more or less about the work what we have done before, kind of what we have done. Simple as that. Of course, everything what I did yesterday, today I could do it better. But big things, we create them only once. We architect the big thing, we make it, the project is done, the product is delivered, the deal is done. Typically, it depends on a case, of course, but only then we know how we should have done it. Product-based companies hopefully have a chance to redo it or reshape it, but still the truth is there, right? We always know how to do it better, and we never get it right. Maybe 3 years ago it was the right thing, but now we look at the same architecture and we're like, yeah, the world has changed, and therefore the decisions we made are not the best ones anymore. So it's 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 the hard truth. Then, do you know what this is? Organizations which design systems are constrained to produce designs which are copies of the communication structures of these organizations. Yes, you are right. It's the Conway's law. How many of you actually have read the paper on Conway's law? I did it those 2 years ago or so to put the slide on the screen to make sure that I know what it actually says, because a lot of people keep mentioning it, but then a lot of them haven't read the paper. It's not that long actually, and yeah, it talks about this weird way of life that it it's enough to put a group of people in two separate rooms physically, and they will create for you also the product like it was done. It was like it has two components, two systems, two hearts. That's simply what naturally happens. And then yeah, you can picture all the other things, kind of what happens because of that. What made me thinking, um further comments from the paper. So these are still references from the paper by Conway. They may also be personal decisions the designer makes about his own future. So someone could be designing a product for company for his own future. And then another sentence which I loved, there is no such thing as a design group which is both organized and unbiased. This picture shows it very well. I stole it from DCME, but kind of ideas around how unbiased people cannot be. Well, everyone is biased. And then if we think about it, really, that there are colleagues doing stuff together, colleagues who don't like each other. Of course, this one is the next level of everything. But imagine what it does to the actual delivery of the work. It does affect the result. We must accept it that this is real. So, is the architect possible? Can anyone be the architect? Maybe years ago, could be. Yeah, you design it, you draw it, and then the system for 3 years is building it, and you're good. For a house, okay, fine. You design the house. Now someone builds it. You're the architect. Fine. But in IT today, I personally don't see how anyone truly can be the architect. It's more the influencer, the gatekeeper, the communicator, the the bridge between teams, the support, all kinds of roles just to make sure that group of people are going in the same direction technically, because manager kind of would make sure that they are going in the same direction, right? Or a leader, well, architect is a leader without a doubt, but architect is still the smartest person. Hopefully, is it really more like someone who is responsible for making sure that all engineers are going in the same direction or have the same passion and so on and so on. But then, obviously, with the time, it doesn't matter how great architect you are, everything on any project just becomes slower. It goes down. You may not like it. You may think that it's your fault or something, but that's just how it is. Every day, we IT people create things. So some inventory is sent somewhere. If company grows, then it's very visible. More processes, new documents, new procedures, new policies, new ideas, bigger backlogs, more code. Everything becomes bigger and slower. It is the reality. How to deal with that? Well, someone comes in and most probably says, we need DevOps. You hire that some person, and she says we need DevOps, and then we will deal with this always always things getting slow or something like that. Okay, well, okay, we did that. We got a person who has read all of these things. I hope you are following the state of DevOps report from year to year. At 10, they made this book. Accelerate, very good book. Then I must point also at Mirko Herring, my colleague, who also got a prize for a very good book. Very good things, very good books. So we hired the person, the DevOps. We expect that DevOps to know this stuff, and most probably someone calls it DevOps engineer. Well, mm, yeah. What I do highly suggest is to look for these talks by by authors, by Nicole and Jazz. Um, the book Accelerate. They talk about the book Accelerate and the research over the years, scientific approach to things. Highly suggested, definitely. And then this DevOps engineer who we hired to make things faster, not slower. Uh, most well, today everyone likes to talk about pipelines, right? Because that's what I see now. Someone has an issue, immediately that's a pipeline thing. You need to add the pipeline. You need to improve pipeline. Kind of lately, that's what DevOps engineers do. Yeah, well, if it would be that easy, if it would. Well, still, even if it's not a pipeline, if it's truly about continuous delivery, and then after many researches, we know that good continuous delivery practice to software development differentiates high performers between low performers. So that's good. I'm not saying that pipelines are bad. It's just what kind of pipelines for what and what they do and how they are made. The goal is continuous delivery, not the pipeline. But okay, let's say we got the pipeline. Maybe it wasn't enough, and then CEO comes in and says, let's do a transformation. If pipeline was not enough, if DevOps engineer was not enough, let's do some transformation. And then someone comes with super nice slides. This is example from one of Accenture slides, but they're always cool, right? How can you not believe in this? um, I hope now everyone has heard about the IT discontinuity idea or theory, where the goal is that we always keep our company, our product, our work in the top green area. The problem is with transformation projects, which CEOs like so much, that we do that project and then it goes back kind of to the red zone, to the bad zone, and then we do another project. Maybe that's not your case. Maybe you're from some rather startup-ish type of company where you don't do big transformation projects, but this is very popular still nowadays and in big enterprises. If someone wants to make a change, there needs to be a budget case, a business case for enterprise transformation or just transformational project and so on. So this is what's happening with those transformations. So transformation kind of works, but it doesn't really fix the cause of the issue. Okay, the CIO comes in and says, yeah, clear. Now everyone is doing microservices. We should do the same. Just make everything smaller. Microservices is the new buzzword. Not anymore, not a buzzword anymore, I guess. Now it's a few years old, but still a lot of big products right now are being re-architected to microservices. And then we look at Amazon architecture or Netflix architecture, and we see this. Yeah, cool. Love it. And this is like 2, 3 years old picture. Now it has changed. Most probably it doesn't look different because it's so many small pieces just somewhere there. But the information what I have is that such giants today, giants like Amazon, like Netflix, that sometimes they are facing the same issues as everyone else, like that old ERP system, what they started with somewhere. It's still not the most modern stuff. if they would rebuild it, it will not increase their sales, not really. So it's a bit hard to get a business case approved for that. No one really wants to touch the thing, and but it is creating issues. And at some point, any big successful company has some issue. So microservices didn't really fix everything, kind of. Then Accenture comes in with digital decoupling, the new stream, mainstream, how to do things. This is our approach. I will not explain details. Of course, it's the best thing out there, but kind of, and then more and more and more different buzzwords like, yeah, let's do feature teams now, let's do product teams, let's do cross-functional teams, and then let's do DevOps teams, and more and more and more, all kinds of buzzwords, new ideas how to do IT better. um, yeah, the business IT alignment, how to move from horizontal to vertical, which is about those teams as well. So everyone has an opinion, everyone is trying to become better, and after doing that all, some companies still find themselves at that square zero, kind of, hey, we're still having kind of the same issue. What's going on? Why these things didn't help? So I'll try to investigate this a little bit deeper. So first issue, what many see, or what is the cause of all the things that kind of nothing is helping. We humans are interesting beings. We see one thing which is similar to another thing, and we, for whatever reason, deep down feel that it's kind of the same thing. And we start stereotyping, and two kind of similar maps of different locations, deep down we think it's kind of the same thing. So if I know one map, it means I know another map. Unfortunately, that's how we humans think, that's how we are built. We think that we see patterns. We think patterns, they don't always exist, but we think that, yep, it's a pattern. I learned it. Now I'm master of the thing. And in result, we see a pattern, we know how it works, we start copying behaviors. Naturally, on that lizard brain level, we like copying each other's behaviors. That's how we could avoid being eaten many years ago, by following others, by doing what other human beings were doing. We were safe. So we keep doing it today, kind of. And then pipelines is a perfect example. Oh, you have a pipeline, I need a pipeline. And everyone is building pipelines, sometimes when the issue is not even close to not having a pipeline. So that was one, kind of why these things keep happening to us. The issue number two, we survive in teams, we communicate. And that's how we human beings can survive. We talk with each other, we inform each other about upcoming issues, fears, we warn each other, and so on and so on. So we survive in groups. Good. And then people start doing some a bit weird things like, okay, if groups are the strongest, then let's take 10 people randomly, put them in a group, and make them together to make decisions, for example. Well, if there's truly a big animal coming to a group of 10, and if they are deciding what to do for a month in a row, what's going to happen? So is it always the best option to look for complete uh, united opinion? Kinda not. Then there's another approach. Okay, then let's make one person the smartest one to control everyone else and just communicate. Well, when that person goes out of order, Again, everyone is running around like crazy. So many ideas. And then there was a time, well, kind of because before COVID, kind of. But that okay, let's start doing open spaces everywhere. Let's just put everyone in one room. To some companies, it did more damage than good. When someone starts expecting that people talk with each other, like this guy on this corner automatically, by definition, is talking to a person on the other side of a room. Most probably, they don't know each other names. Most probably, but the manager. So that's the issue number two, kind of. And then how much we truly can kind of communicate with people. 5 people to 5 people, we make 120 connections. 10 people to 10 people, impossible to comprehend amount of connections. It just doesn't work. The issue number three, a quick experiment. If we would be in a room, I'd be talking with you, then we would do an experiment, but I'll just give you that, I'll give you it immediately. So we would need to look at kind of these three things and try to memorize each of them. And then I would ask, what do you remember? Can you list them? Then what also a medical research shows that human memory as such can keep in a long-term memory basically infinite number of items, but it's in a long-term memory. In short-term memory, 7 plus minus 2 kind of things in a list. Meaning, if we find a way how to keep everything in chunks, it should help. That's the idea. So if we try to memorize 15 items in one list, it's super hard. If it's 7 and 8, we make mistakes to remember them. If it's 555 lists of items, kind of easier to remember. Remember, the slide was silos are good DevOps silos. So that's what I want to propose to you today. Try to make small silos of everything. Put people in small silos. Put small groups of people in small silos. At the end of the day, you will come to something like this. This is not my invention. This is Beta Codex, and someone before them came up with this approach. But this is the old style, kind of. Then additionally to that, remember the number 7 for short-term memory. So try to put everything in chunks, in lists of 7 or less. And if one day, let's see the system 2, and there's a lot of components and it's growing. I, as engineer in the middle, I am making this system 2 of things. And we add component behind component. So if it grows more than 7, try to split it. If you're a manager of organization and you see more and more roles evolving, try to start putting them into chunks, into groups, into hierarchies, so that you as a human need to remember only what's relevant to you.
Last 1 minute.
It's natural. It's how things are born on a deep down level. So layering and grouping with self-service, of course. Each of those groups should have some automated way how to handle tickets, items, communications. So think Conway, think Conway. As I promised, after this talk, you'll be able to make better decisions. I hope you can now. I hope. If you took like few, 1, 2 ideas from all this, I have succeeded. And then thank you for listening. And you can contact me here under this small URL. Just invite me on LinkedIn. Let's be connected.